All right, we're on. Loanne, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay.
So,
Thanks for,
Loanne, line
yeah.
producer. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you became Loanne, line producer.
I don't know. I think it was somebody else's idea at 20 years old, 19 years ago. Wasn't
Who,
my idea to become a producer.
whose idea was it?
A bunch of directors at West Valley College.
Oh. I can always see that from when I knew you that you're very good at being that person that can organize a group and motivate a group and keep the troops in line.
That's funny because it's like, I feel like the kid who wants to play dodgeball all the time. I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to have a game. We're going to have a game. We're going to have teams. That's pretty much, it's like, I want to play. And
Yeah,
so we're going to do this now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what you need to do, right? You need to be the person that rallies the troops and sort of creates a path for them to head towards or a goal to head towards. Um, I guess even if somebody has a good idea, if somebody else in that group is the idea person or the person that has a goal of some sort, they may not be the right person to find a way to get there. And they need
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's like a team, right? You just, in every like sport, I always have sports analogy. So every time you have like a sport that's a group sport, like filmmaking, everyone has a different role. So you
Right.
pass the ball to a different position.
Yeah. I wanted to actually ask you about sort of to compare. So one of the things one of the threads I want to follow by doing podcasts like this is that DIY individual, the trailblazer, the person who doesn't necessarily take the path that everybody goes down. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
an example, not that it's wrong, but an example would be go to a traditional college, get a degree, get a job doing what you learned about and what that degree is for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and and retire after X amount of years of doing that. You know, and really not to have any any extreme challenges or bumps in the road. I mean, not to say college is easy, but you know, I appreciate those people that say there's something I want to do that isn't really something you can specifically learn about in school. You kind of have to go figure it out, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something you've done, and I really, I celebrate that. So,
Oh, yeah.
um,
I think I tried the traditional path after, I mean, like when I was 19, we started taking acting classes. That's when we met. And then about like 6 years later, I tried to take the traditional path, but I kind of lost my compass because I like always navigated with my instincts. So when I started to defer to the rest of society, I lost my compass, like how to make decisions. So I had to come back here. I like had to go back to filmmaking. It was
when you
like,
say come back here, what do you mean come back here?
oh, go back to filmmaking because it was the
As
only,
opposed to acting?
no, I'm sorry, going back to just working on like making content, like production. Like
Well,
production
wait,
makes,
hold on. I'm sorry. Just so I'm clear, let's take a step back. I want to understand what you're saying. So, educationally, you know, we're in the college world and the learning sort of phase,
yeah.
and then you keep going down that road, and then something happens, and you take a step back and try again, or am I
No, when I went to college, it wasn't to pursue a degree. It
okay?
was because I didn't know what I was going to do next outside of high school. So I went into college kind of like I was in college while I was trying to figure out what I was trying to do. And
Oh, okay,
then
okay.
and then I realized I felt like college wasn't, it was too structured for me. I loved taking the classes, but I don't know, I just had to figure it out. But
Yeah.
I was shooting weddings for a while, and then I kind of got the sense that I wasn't in a traditional trajectory. So I tried to do a traditional trajectory by getting like a regular job that made sense
A
to
regular
everybody.
job, but still involved in filmmaking in some
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, but not the way that I would have gone. So for me, filmmaking is kind of like, um, you just go with what feels right. Like for me, it was just go with what feels right. So whatever was natural just became like producing film festivals and then producing independent stuff, like short films.
Yeah.
And
You
then,
you
mhm.
you went to at some point, which I remember finding out, or I can't remember which way I found out about it back then. You went to Cannes and got to get involved in the film festival there. Am I right?
Yeah. So in 2002, I went to the Cannes Film Festival and was an intern for 3 weeks.
I always thought that was super cool because that's that's not like going to a film festival in California or something like that, or in the U.S. Really,
No,
it's
no.
probably much different.
No, and I didn't have, I don't have any contacts in the entertainment industry or anything like that. And so I spent 6 months in 2001 when Google was like 2 years old. And I
Really,
just kept searching for some way to get into the industry and just kind of like in any, like, it was kind of like you're treading water and then just trying to reach for a life raft. And so then I found the
when
Cannes
you
Film
say reach for
Festival.
a life thought, you're talking about being involved in filmmaking from like a college level and wanting to be doing it from a professional level. Is that what you mean? You're trying to find
Yeah,
something to grasp onto.
just something that was in the industry because I never really thought college would be my ticket to working in the entertainment industry.
Uh,
And so I saw the Cannes Film Festival as a way to like get a sense of that world because it was in a professional realm. Because it's
well,
like
how did you come about the opportunity, and how did you seize? Was there competition, and how did it all come down to like I'm buying my plane ticket? It's happening.
okay. So there was an application that you had to fill out and an essay that you had to write. I believe it was like a 1-page essay. And you just had to fill out like 3 questions about like what you were trying to do as a film, what you hope to do in the industry. Um, kind of
So
like,
engaging you and seeing how serious you were.
yeah, like why are you interested in the Cannes Film Festival? That's what kind of the sense of what the essay was. And then there was, I believe, 400 applicants, and they chose 120
Hmm.
people. And then, and
So
then,
series one of the filter went from 400 to 120.
yes,
You made that cut.
yeah, that was cool because I had never done anything like that where I never submitted myself for anything that had a selection process.
Uh,
And so it was kind of a big deal. Like I didn't even do that with college. Like I just kind of assumed that like I didn't want to go through being qualified to go to college. So I went straight to community college where
yeah,
you just get to go. There's no, there isn't
yeah,
a
yeah.
barrier of entry.
I
Um,
like that too. I don't have a degree myself, and as you know, and I always found I didn't go to a state school or a what's the term I'm thinking of, a university.
yeah.
Um, it
Hmm.
was just the community, the city college, and I went to what, two of them, and all I think it's at one point I was like, I'm gonna try to get a bachelor's, right? And so then I started taking the science and history, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? I'm sitting there for 2 hours going, and what else? Like,
Yeah.
and like I'm just like wondering what the outcome of this is gonna be, and because I knew where I wanted to go, and
Yeah.
learning about these things, it it was like I can't say it was bad, but it related so little
Yeah. Yes.
that it felt like a time waster.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
I can
that's why I say it's really cool that you took this opportunity and you jumped on it. So you make it through all these cuts, right? And then
And then and then I told my parents, and then this is a different kind of internship. They don't pay you to go, right? So
So you
you
had to
get
ask for money from the family.
no, well, they didn't ask for money, but the cost of living in the apartment, I guess, and the little meals that we had, and like a little bit of access and whatever they needed for each person. Anyway, there was a scholarship, but I didn't want to apply for the scholarship because I didn't want to get rejected from the scholarship and not end up going to the Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
Anyway, my
You
parents
didn't. You were
ended up
like, I don't want to risk ruining anything. At this
exactly.
point,
I was
I'm
like,
going. I'm not saying shit.
yeah, exactly. So it was $3,000 to pay for the apartment in the south of France.
You
Um,
had to come up with $3,000.
yeah. So
Wow.
I asked
Well,
my
it's
parents.
so high. It's so highly sought after that they figure we don't have to give any of these kids shit. That if they want to go, they better find their own way.
Yeah. So I remember it being $3,000 to go,
Wow.
and I remember the flights being something like I think it was like $1,000 or $1,500 round trip to go.
So three
So it was,
thousand for the apartment, 1,500 for the flight.
and then just like
Wow.
a little bit of cash. So probably the whole thing cost like 5 grand for 3 weeks.
Interesting. Sounds like
Yeah.
a really, I think, really expensive work vacation.
Yes. Oh my God. But
Did
it
you
was
get to enjoy France at all? Did you have any
oh
free
my God,
time?
yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean like I was exhausted the first day, but you definitely the first day they like had us take a tour. So we, there's your travel day where you arrive, you get settled in, and then the next day, 120 of us went.
120. It came down to 120. Wait. So it went from 400 to 120, and
Mhm.
that was the final cut?
Yeah, that was the final cut.
120 volunteers?
Yes, interning. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Interning?
no,
Right.
you really. I mean, you
Yeah.
really.
That's an interesting choice of words by the festival. Hey, we need interns to yeah. Interns get their expenses covered to do the job.
Well, it ended
I'm
up.
not knocking it. It's great. I think even though it was money out of pocket, like I see international travel as extremely valuable, especially at a young age in your 20s, because you're going to learn stuff about the world that you'll never experience here at any college or anything.
It's the first time I've ever traveled internationally alone, and still is the only time internationally that it's still the only time that I've ever traveled alone.
So let's talk about like what you did there related to filmmaking, and maybe if you
So,
learn things that you can apply now, things like
well,
that.
I would say that so they had us fill out a questionnaire, what we're interested in. I was interested in producing and public relations and kind of like the marketing part of it. And so they assigned me with one of the PR guys from Lionsgate.
Okay.
So some of us would be, some of the interns would be at Miramax, some of them would be at Wilhelmina, some of them would be at Hollywood Reporter. So we'd be partnered up with like a representative from the different industry groups. And so
Right.
we would follow them
Whatever
around.
big organization qualified to be worth presenting them free labor, basically,
Yeah.
on
Well,
paper.
and also it was through the American Pavilion. So it wasn't directly through the Cannes Film Festival. So the American Pavilion is kind of like a home base for filmmakers.
Okay.
So you see all those white pavilions on the water,
Yeah.
and each pavilion is
Represents a country, or
yes.
okay.
Yes. So you have
Obviously I haven't been, so
yeah. So you'll have the Canadian pavilion, and then you'll have the American pavilion, and all the different hubs for filmmakers to kind of like rest and relax and lounge and do some administrative work like mailing, faxing, things like that.
So let's think about this from like back to like sort of the original question is like you're now line producing. Maybe you didn't even know really what a line producer did at this point.
No, I did not even know.
Yeah.
No.
So when you're there and you're learning things, did you pick up stuff that you thought, hey, there's one, I used to want to be a camera operator or a DP or a director, but now I'm seeing these other aspects of the life cycle of a film. Did it change your mind there at all? Did you have any, new inspirations?
I think if anything, the experience expanded my frame of reference. So at that point, I'm 21 and I'm 2 years into shooting weddings professionally as a second shooter. And up to that point, I had only taken a few acting classes and intro to filmmaking, production, intro to directing. So that was my background. And at the time it was beginning of summer. It was May 2002. I was shooting weddings and I was working as a stagehand on off-Broadway productions in downtown San Jose.
This was what you were doing for income before you went to con?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for me,
it was college, filmmaking classes, and then that job, and then con comes around.
And the wedding. So weddings, plays, and college. So
Okay.
yeah, I never really thought of what I was doing as making income. It was more like I was getting paid to do cool things. And then I went to the Cannes Film Festival, and I would say the biggest eye-opening thing was that it really was a business, because everything there was about lunches and dinners and business deals and press releases and press showings. And it was not, for me, it was eye-opening because in my world, all I was used to was production, being a stagehand, being a shooter, learning
once
about
they
production.
finish the film, you don't know where it goes from there.
Yeah, because you don't,
sales-wise, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't follow that train of thought. I didn't jump on that train at that point. So when I got to the Cannes Film Festival, my job was to help write press releases. And then every single morning I look at the new trade papers, like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and then some international trade magazines for filmmaking. And it was just looking for press clippings of, did our press release make it to this trade magazine? How far did it go? And so
how far did what go?
Our
the
press
film
release.
the press release about a particular property?
Yes. Or, well, it would be more like a particular event. Like, let's say we'd have Christina Ricci cutting the ribbon for the opening of the Cannes Film Festival at the American Pavilion. So we would do a press release for that. And then the next morning we would see which trade papers,
So you're trying to get people to show up to these events to generate a buzz and things like that.
I don't know about generating a buzz. I don't think my brain was there yet. I think it was more like just kind of doing what the PR guy told me to do.
Right. But you knew that you were putting an ad in a paper and promoting something, and you wanted to gauge that if people were seeing that and if they were noticing it.
Yes.
So what I'm getting at is, like, you're seeing that this you're helping, but obviously you're realizing that the film is a business and that this is the point in which people are trying to get the film to market, I guess you would say, and to get it known about and potentially sell it or get someone to distribute it, things like that.
Yeah. What I was seeing was there was just a lot of meetings and a lot of partying to get to know each other. And then I wouldn't be any of those meetings for deals or anything like that. I think the biggest thing for me really was just to watch everybody try to get a meeting, go to screenings, try to get tickets into parties so they can meet people, or just have fun. So it was more like the social economics of the film business.
Okay. What about still, like, what's aside from the traditional work you were doing, did you give us the scoop? Like, what kind of weird, interesting, did you see, Quentin Tarantino punch any reporters? Like,
I mean, I think when you're at the Cannes Film Festival and you're in the thick of it, I think you're just around like everybody, and it's like you're getting snippets. For me, it was you're getting snippets of everybody. Like one day it would be like Christina Ricci, like a couple of feet away from me, complimenting me on my bracelet. And then walking into the Marymount Hotel to drop off a press release, and then David Lynch would be passing by. I'm like, oh my God, there's David Lynch.
Wow.
And then there would be like a crowd of people buzzing around one of the main roads, and it's like, who's that? And it's like, that's Scorsese. And it's like, okay, wow. And then there would be like I think there was like 17 limousines coming down the road, and it's like, who's that? And it's like, oh, that's Leonardo DiCaprio. And like for some reason every car is just blonde girls. Right. And then we would like somehow end up in the basement of some screening theater or basement of some theater. And then it would be like, there's Rebecca Romaine Stamos, and there's Brad Pitt, and there's, and it's just like so many of the most famous people in the world were just there with you all the time. And so you're just,
shock wears off, and you're just working at that point.
I think it becomes surreal. It was surreal because it was like, I wasn't expecting any of that. I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect to have the proximity to these people that are making such an impact, or that were just so, successful in the business.
Right. Well, that's fun. That's cool. It was always something that I thought was super interesting that you did, and I admired that.
That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So
okay.
Wrapping up the whole, how did you get to where you are now? So that's a cool milestone. Then from that point to now, what else? What are the other big sort of learning moments?
So that was 2002. And then fast forward to 2008, I decided, okay, I'll try film school. So then I went to film school for about 3 months. I went to the Berkeley Digital Institute, which is now defunct, but I was there. And it was a directing and producing program. Like I had already toured like all the famous, schools like UCLA.
Yeah.
I don't know if I went to NYU. I definitely went to USC. I went to the Academy of Art. I just like toured probably 5 to 7 film schools before I decided I wanted a small, intimate, like film school.
With the intention of getting a degree at a film school kind of thing?
What?
You tour these schools with the intention of doing like a full cycle, I guess, at a film school would be to get
I didn't really think about that. I didn't think about it as I'm here to get a degree, or I didn't think of it that way. I really just thought, is this the community where I'm going to grow as a producer? Is this going to train me as a producer? And then I just didn't feel like I vibed with any of these schools. And so then I went to this Berkeley school, and it seemed very like hands-on for some reason. It just occurred very small, intimate, hands-on. So anyway, go to the school for 3 months. The biggest milestone there is I meet somebody in screenwriting class who wrote this World War II film. It was in Japanese internment camp with a World War II background, Japanese internment camp. And we decided to make a teaser for the feature script and bring it to the American film market, AFM. And so we met at film school, but the actual film was not a student film. So then the milestone there was we went down to LA over an Eagle, I think it was called the Eagle, Kaiser Mine, near Kaiser Mine near like Joshua Tree. It's like there's a band.
To film the project?
Yeah, so we went and filmed it for like 2 to 3 days. We did a bunch of, I think from the moment I heard the script being read out loud in screenwriting class to the moment that we wrapped on principal photography, because it was 2 days at this ghost town, Kaiser Mine, it was 7 weeks. So we finished the thing and then brought it to the American film market. So that was September. So something like June, late May, I heard the script for the first read out loud. September, we started shooting. We wrapped on shooting. And then November, we're at the American film market. We just basically did 1 semester of film school and said, F it. We're just going to make this thing. And then we went to
people at school and then went and made a film with them. So it's like they say about these big schools that it's really, you're not paying for the education, you're paying for the contacts.
Yeah, you're just paying for I think you're paying for proximity to certain people who have similar interests, and it's up to you whether you're going to develop a relationship with them or not.
Yeah.
I mean, they're your comrades.
Well, you said that you met somebody. What was it? The guy you're working with now you met?
Mike. So Mike is a director and owner of Co2 Media, and I met Mike when I was 21. So around the time I went to the Cannes Film Festival, we were shooting weddings together. He was, so there was our main camera operator who was the owner of the wedding company I worked for, and then I was his main assistant. I was always the second shooter. And then Mike was added on because he did very special things, like he would shoot the ceremony and some of the prep, and then during the reception, he would start making the highlight video so that we would show it at the reception, which is kind of a big deal. Like, we're on mini DV tape filming or shooting, and then he has to like digitize it and then edit like a 1 to 2 minute or 2 minute, 3 minute highlight, and then show it right after the toast. It's a very short turnaround.
You know how happy I am that the cameras, I feel like I was at the right age for the moment when you could get like an iMac DV and a camera with FireWire video out and import the footage into your computer, edit it, and then send it right back out to tape.
Oh yeah.
Because I just for a moment, I was in that phase of my dad has a VHS camcorder, and the only way to take the footage I shot and actually cut it was to export it off the camera, which was a VHS player itself, onto a VHS or a VCR, I'm sorry, by pressing record, and you weren't getting accurate edits because it was like a timing thing.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to choose between using the recorded audio or putting sound over it by playing a CD from a CD player into the audio. So just super hokey, unless you had better equipment. But then this, I don't know how long it had been out, but, I was, 19, 20, and the computer with the software, Adobe Premiere, whatever it was then, 5.0 or something,
mm-hmm.
You get a copy of it, and it's like open new worlds. And
it was pretty cool. I mean, it was pretty cool. I think I was confused at first when I was 19, and I go into this interview thinking I'm interviewing for a PA position.
The interview for the con gig?
No, for weddings. For weddings, I thought I was interviewing because it said production assistant, and I was like, okay, production assistant. And then I show up, and within 10 minutes, it was like, do you know the rule of thirds? And I was like, no. And he was like, do you know how to turn on a camera? I'm like, no. But I was like,
any job then where they've got a bunch of you walk into their office and see cameras and equipment and tripods and lights. You're like, I'll do whatever you want. I just want to start playing with you. That's how I was. I
was more like confused. I thought it was like a pop quiz. So I was like, okay, I actually don't know where the record button is, but can you show me? And so he shows me, and then he asked me, about the rule of thirds, and I didn't know. So then he starts to draw on paper what the rule of thirds were. So you basically
a wedding videographer is explaining the rule of thirds to you for weddings, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, where you get it, it's great. It just seems funny that you got that thing, that sort of cinematography related sort of topic.
I didn't even, my head, I thought I was just going to be trained to assist. And then in his head, he was training a camera assistant. So that communication did not become totally obvious until day one of the job. And then I had this
ad for PA for this guy thinking you're going to assist all around. And turns out he actually wanted you to operate the camera.
Yeah.
So he's a little labor thief. He's misrepresenting what he's got going on. Well, PA, actually you're operating the camera, but you're still getting paid as a PA.
Well, I'm gonna guess. Actually, I mean, it was really cool though, Alex. Like, I'm gonna
I'm
guess.
not knocking it. I just think it's, I'm in that headspace now where I'm just like,
I'm gonna guess that his sons did the flyer and he didn't really know, and they posted it at De Anza College, and then I just
oh,
like
that's
picked
where you
it up.
saw it?
Yeah, I saw it on because
Cool.
I had this habit of like being very aware of the events on campus because I was, college was this big world to me. So I
Yeah.
was very excited about all the flyers.
That's kind of cool because there is a lot of opportunity there on those, like back in the day, I guess, at least on the cork board, where they'd be like, hey, this weekend we're shooting a short film.
Yeah,
Everyone want to help out. I
yeah,
guess now that's digital in some way, but back then that I remember the cork board at school, and I think at where else? There was another something like that. I think it was shoot. The one at school, but there was some other place I would go. I forget. It might have been a coffee shop or something that was like kind of a local coffee
yeah,
shop to filmmaker type people.
yeah.
And people would post stuff on there because this was pre-Facebook, pre-iPhone. So the best way to get eyes on something where you needed help.
I thought it was more fun because it was just a bunch of opportunities. It was more like all you're looking at are invitations on a board. You're looking at an invitation for a club, a party, a job. You're looking at invitations versus Facebook. You're looking at opinions a lot.
Yeah. Well, isn't in our business as a freelancer or someone that, even if you're not like actually day-to-day freelancing, you're kind of permalancing where your job can change. Isn't everything an opportunity in
Yeah.
our eyes? Like if you work at a bank or something, let's say you work at a bank and you know that you're an employee and you're going to be an employee until you utterly fuck up or
Oh,
something really drastically changes. But for us, you could be working at an office or at a job or something, even if it's ongoing, and something could else pop up and you could be working somewhere else next week. So it's kind of like we're always sniffing out opportunities in this industry, I feel like.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's all project based, so it's always getting picked. I always go back to the sports analogy. I think it's just getting picked to be on the team.
Yeah,
They're just like, I like this person in that position. I want to invite them back for a different
for
project.
sure. Well, that's what I'm always doing. I I I am massaging relationships constantly as a freelancer. I don't I don't get in like you will end up working for like a group or a company like
Hmm.
as an employee on a permanent type basis, but I the most permanent thing I do is work on like a particular project or show for the run of the production of that show, which could be two
Right,
weeks, could be 3 months, but I
right,
know that there's an end coming.
right.
So my
Well,
spidey sense is always making sure I'm being very friendly and helpful and cooperative to the people who I want to maintain relationships with, and not in a backstabbing, spiteful way. But I honestly am doing that because that's the only way that I'll get rehired. Not the only
mhm.
way, but it's probably the first and foremost biggest way. You know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, okay. So I moved to LA or Southern California like summer of 2016. So it's been 4 years. Right now
Yeah.
it's July 2020.
Right.
And yeah, I moved here June 28th, 2016. But this would be like my fourth quote unquote job, except that this one, 2 years ago, I decided I'm going to be a freelancer, which
Right.
is kind of a,
Hold on. You're doing something on the mic there.
oh, shoot. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You just had your thumb on it or something. Go ahead.
I must have. Um, so from 2016 to 2018, for 2 years, I was an employee of somewhere and I had three places that I was an employee of. And after 2 years in, I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to be a freelancer because I was a freelancer when I was in the Bay Area. But the risk here is that I'm like the new kid on the block. I don't know a ton of people. And so I just like, to me, it was like jumping in the deep end.
Yeah.
And so I did. And then
Jumping in the
within,
deep end, meaning moving from the Bay Area to LA.
no, from being an employee to a freelancer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like there's no sense, there's not that big of a network yet because I'm new to LA. I don't really know a lot of people.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, and so I jumped into the deep end, and for 3 months I wasn't working, and then I reconnected with Mike, who I was shooting weddings with like how many years? 15 years prior up to that point.
Yeah.
And then we hadn't seen each other for 15 years. And he was like, yeah, come down to the studio. So I met up with him and he was like, what are you looking to do? And I'm like, I want to produce original content.
Yeah.
And then he said, that's great. We're looking for a producer. And I was like, well, okay.
That's the sort of the nucleus of the freelance world, is those contacts that, you made that contact over a decade ago.
Yeah. And I wasn't looking
back down the pipe, and here you are running into each other, and that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't looking for a job, and I wasn't, we literally were just meeting up with each other to get coffee. We hadn't seen each other for he saw a post on Instagram. Was like, what are you doing in my area? And I'm like, I live here now. He's like,
it was just hang out and say hi, and then it turned out through conversation that there was a job opportunity that you fit.
Yeah, and also I think there was a lot of stuff we had in common. Like I had just read this book, and I had mentioned that book, and he's like, oh, I'm in the middle of reading this book, and it's a business book called gosh, I can't remember the name right now. But anyway, E-Myth. So we were both reading E-Myth, and it's just about owning your own business and all these things. Anyway, so we just had a lot of stuff in common. Anyway, so then fast forward to 2 years later right now. So I'm producing corporate videos. I mean, it sounds kind of boring, but it's really, really cool. We do really cool stuff.
You showed me something you did the other day. It looked great.
Yeah, so it was
the Acura thing?
Yeah. It was just we do reveal videos for automotive manufacturers. So we do some
that was stuff. It looked more like it looked more like a high-end commercial to me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yep. Little Mrs. I don't want to tell you what I'm like. You don't like to boast about what you do. You like the work to speak for itself, which is admirable, I guess.
Well, I'm glad that's coming across, because I get a little embarrassed, because I think they're so cool, and it's like I want to talk about it, but then I don't want to come across like it's
That's good. I always think that and I try to do it myself, is sort of undersell, over deliver. Because I find that if people oversell something by talking about it or whatever it is, when you see the product, you may have it may be overhyped, and you see it and you're like, this guy said this thing was amazing. It's okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't say much about it, you don't have a lot to try to rise to. It can be great even if it's mediocre.
I think how there's player mode and there's spectator mode. Like when you're a player in the stadium, you've got a whole different vocabulary that you're focused on. I mean, that you're using to advance the game. And then as a spectator, you're using descriptive, because you're not having the ball come at you. You're watching the ball move.
Sure. So
for me, it's like I'm trying to deliver a smooth shoot. I'm trying to set up everyone on my team to do well.
Right.
Because and this everyone has a different attitude while they're doing their job. My attitude is, I'm producing, so I have a different mindset every phase of it, from pre-production to post-production. So for people who aren't familiar with what a line producer does, because there's so many different kinds of producers.
Yeah.
A line producer will go from potentially creating the budget at the very beginning of the production to being in pre-production, making sure that you're fulfilling under budget, and then I get to be a field producer, so I'll be on the actual production at principal photography, making sure everything's run smoothly, people are getting what they need to execute their job well. And then we get to post-production, and we're a little bit different that we don't have a post-production coordinator. So I'll help facilitate some communication in post-production. I'll look at the different cuts with the director, and sometimes the director, we're very dynamic. So it's not extremely structured, but it's a good structure where Mike will look at the cuts, and then he'll give his creative notes, and then I'll look at the cuts at the same time or around the same time.
Mike, you're talking about the owner of the company, but what you mean is the director of the project.
Mike is the owner and the director of these projects.
Whoever it is,
yeah,
you'd be attached at the hip to the project as this person as the director would
Yeah.
through to
Yeah.
the end to delivery.
Right. So I'll be at the beginning of budgeting to production to post-production and then to final delivery. So that means that my voice is in all those emails from the very beginning of the project to the end of to final delivery.
I've never really known sort of by definition what a line producer does. Like you said, there's many different kinds, and the only one that I've really seen in action, the only version of a producer, is the unit production.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're kind of a producer, unit production manager. They're not really credited as a producer, but I mean, they're not hands-on on production. They're more connected to the budget and stuff, and that's kind of like the only, even though they don't have a label as producer, they're you know, in my opinion, they're essentially a producer that's like the closest to involved to the day-to-day, the call sheet, you know, are people on time, where like even midday they'll be checking what money's going out to, like this.
I would still say that title is appropriately named, unit production manager, because they're literally managing the logistics of the production. They may not be the person who does the schedule. I mean, that's AD or sometimes the line producer.
Well, anybody that's not hands-on, if you're not there involved in the physical production of the show, and like I said, the UPM is the closest, it's like the closest bridge. So if you have people that are making the show or the product or the commercial, whatever it is, and by making it, I mean hands on a camera, hands on a light, hands on a prop, the people that are acquiring the equipment needed and utilizing the equipment, hands on. That's actual production. Then you have, like, let's say an executive producer who may not even step foot on set. That would be the other extreme of that description. Within those two brackets, completely hands off and completely hands on, the first person in the line that starts hands off, meaning everybody that's got hands on, and then the first person who's hands off but closest to hands on, in my opinion, is a UPM.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody who's never really involved, they don't touch a camera, they don't touch a prop, that's, to me, a producer type person. So a unit production manager doesn't have the title of producer, but they interact with the line producer or the any producer or director, and they may just be sitting at Village or sitting behind a monitor, and they're never really touching or doing anything super involved. Some might, but like I said, I'm speaking from my experience. So that's the closest producer type of entity that I have the ability through what I do to see day to day. So beyond that, the line producer, executives, I really don't know what their day entails other than communication, you know?
So a line producer you'll probably get on a commercial too. They're kind of like, they're definitely, to me, the Swiss Army knife of like producers.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you tell me, even if it's not something you do, but as a line producer, you know, can you describe, let's say, think of like a shoot you're on. So if you're on a shoot and your routine of what you do is sort of cut and dry, but is there a scenario where suddenly you had to jump off of whatever you're doing to solve a problem? So
always.
Well, I'm looking for like an example of like a heightened moment of an extreme case of something that, like a day you're doing an act or a thing, and you get there and the car is not there yet, you know, and you have to start making phone calls. Can you kind of just talk about like how you solve problems in an emergency scenario during a work day?
I'm thinking about when I have emergencies and I've set them up to never have them. I cannot think of.
I guess that's the best description of a producer, if you set them up to never have them.
I mean,
the best case, you're doing the best job then at that point.
Well, you mentioned something about like, you know, you want everyone you're on set, like people should, if there's a producer on set, don't bug the producer. They've got 1,000 text message text messages to make sure the production runs smoothly, and all like just don't get in their way. And when I'm on set, I don't know, I just feel like everything's already handled in pre-production. So by the time I get to production, I don't have like a lot to do. It's not like I don't have a lot to do. I'm like on to the next thing. I'm in pre-production for the next shoot, but I'm sitting on set of the current shoot that I already did pre-production for. If any crew is missing anything or has a question, or they're just, I'm kind of like the information center for that production. But sometimes I'm already in the throes of post-production for another thing, and I'm in pre-production for another shoot. So,
okay, well, if the emergency scenario is not really like super applicable, which is fine, then like what would be the top 3 most important things that you need to do on any shoot? Is it securing the location, and is it making sure you have the...
While we're on set, my main person that I keep in sync with would be the director, the AD, and the director. So I want to make sure that the assistant director is on schedule. Like he needs, if there's any concerns, he checks in with me like, hey, we're a couple of hours behind. We may go into overtime. We may go into double time, or the director will come check in with me, Mike, every now and then. I mean, he's a really cool director. He's also kind of very producer mind. So he'll say, hey, we're a little bit like, maybe the lens we use is sticky. It hasn't been made. Like, for example, we use this snorkel lens, and the snorkel lens was a little sticky. It wasn't like, I guess, maintained very well. So by the time we got it and we're in the middle of shooting, we couldn't use some of its features because it was just too sticky. So it caused us delayed by like maybe a couple hours over the course of like a couple days, which is not too bad, but it just added time, which translates to overtime, which means that I'm sitting on my laptop. So what you're seeing a lot of times, I'm going to guess what you're seeing a lot of times, if you're seeing producers on set on their laptop, they're probably doing math or they're trying to do a negotiation for something. So I'm doing math. If a AD walks up to me or a director walks up to me and say, hey, we're behind by 2 hours, I'll start doing the math on who's on production right now, what's it costing every single hour. And then I can go back to the client like, hey, we're looking at an extra $5,000, $10,000 or another $15,000 or $1,500 every hour that you want to add a new shot to this scene.
So it's safe to say that your number one priority is the budget.
It's not so much the budget. My number one priority is to provide information for everyone to make a better decision. So if money isn't the issue, if we are capped out at a certain budget, then I will keep that in mind. But if we're not, if the client goes, I want this shot, I'm okay with spending another 10 grand. Right. I give them enough information to accurately make that decision.
So it's tracking time and information and making sure you can get your day.
Yeah. So my job
changes or not.
Yeah, because every time you add overtime, like people think, oh, everyone has a different view of overtime. Some people are like, yeah, I make more money. Some people are like, dang it, it's taking too long. Some people are thinking it's way expensive. What I'm thinking is every hour is a new negotiation, because your original agreement with the crew is 10 hours. Right. And then when you go on overtime, is the crew okay with that? Because maybe they have, maybe we're back at sunrise the next morning. I have to start.
Are you dealing with union crews or non-union crews?
Non-union, but my job also is taking care of like making sure people's well-being is like, right. They're good. They're good to do their job, and also keeping morale, because I don't want to have a crew that starts to expect that we don't have their back. And that's
you'll start to lose steam, and you lose their what's the right word? They become less motivated if they don't have enough sleep and the right amount of drink, food, all this stuff.
Yeah. And my end game, every producer has a different attitude toward how they take care of a crew. And my end game is, how do I set people up so that they can perform better than they would have hoped. So if you get a crew that's vibing really well because you set up like food very well and you set up catering, you know what I mean? Like, you just set up the environment well for people to be creative, because when they're there, they can technically do the job, but if their spirit is not there, like they're not excited to be there, because
Yeah.
because you don't have their back. Like, you just like have lunch late, you have dinner late, you have like crew members that have shitty attitudes. They start to I would, if I were crew, I would be distrusting judgment calls on the producer. Like, dude, what the heck? where, like, what the heck, you know? But I just, set people up well. So my job is constantly on the laptop. Okay, looking at the math, looking at like, how are we checking in with people? Like, how are people? Does someone need a break? Like, just be a good human.
Yeah, I mean, I guess an analogy might be like the team captain kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's not about
Safety,
being.
the budget, time, equipment. You kind of have to keep your attention on everything to a degree.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fun, because I'm always like, how can I do better and be more efficient, so that, because for me, it's like, it's not awesome enough to execute well. It's more awesome to me if we get these creative people in this moment with a budget, and we get to create magic. Like, we have a moment where something cool just happens
Do
because
you
we're
have
all in
that
flow.
moment? So I've seen directors have that moment when something complicated or unique gets set up, a shot gets set up, and they get what they want. The timing, the actor hits their mark, whatever the thing is. And I've seen directors physically react positively to getting what they want to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they show through their body language that win. Do you have that moment, as a line
Oh
director?
yeah, I get recently, and I won't say like what project it was, but like the director and the AD like came over and they're like, "This is the sickest footage we have ever shot ever." That's a big deal, because that's 2 decades of both of them. Like, I mean, each of them have been in the business for like 2 decades, and for them to come back and say this is the sickest footage we've ever like shot is freaking cool. And like, I didn't let myself see any playback during production because I wanted to be surprised in
Oh,
post.
really?
Yeah. And
So
so when I thought,
you're not
what?
looking at the footage like throughout the day to see how it's going, if there needs to be tweaks?
No,
Really?
because, well, the
That's
reason
kind of
why,
ballsy. Don't you think that's pretty ballsy for your position to kind of trust? And interesting.
no, because you choose people to be on your team that like you trust their judgment call, and then you get out of the
Okay.
effing way. And for me, the decision to not be on set, like to be like at the studio, but like away from set, was, if I'm not adding to the work right there, if I'm not actually advancing the creativity there, get out of the way. So I just like
Yeah.
hung out near Crafty and was on my laptop working on other projects.
That's actually a
So
really interesting answer, that you feel that you trust your own judgment and the judgment of those that you've hired, that why should you have to look over their shoulder? Because if you hired them to do the job, that means you trust them and they should get what they're supposed to get.
they're just freaking awesome. They're so good at their job. It's like, for me, they're just so good at their job. Like, there's no reason for me to be on set. Like, it's like, perfection. You just keep taking things out until it's like amazing. So for me, it was like, I don't need to be on set. They have this more than handled. And so I just started looking at other things I could do. Like, can I straighten up the crafty table? Can I, find out a way to like have a better catering setup for them tomorrow? Can I make sure that everyone?
Constantly checking and see if you can make what you've put together better.
Yes. So then I'll also look through like payment systems. Is every single crew member, do they all have direct deposit? So I'll be working on that. Like, and like, how do I make them working with us, how do I make it a better experience for everyone while I'm on set? So I'm just looking at different things. Yeah.
That's really great. I like hearing that. It's inspiring because there's so many times that I've seen 6 cooks in the kitchen and a massive amount of time being wasted checking on things that, you know, had you just trusted the person to do the job and given them the tools of the job, it should have happened. Why is there, you know, the shot that they wanted should take 10 minutes, but now they're spending 45 minutes making sure that they got it right. And then after a 45-minute delay communicating about this shot, then they go back and shoot it again. You know, and there's all these crew getting paid overtime sitting around just waiting. It's like, what, you know, is that a failure of a producer right there? I mean,
I think there's a couple things. One thing is, okay, so 2 things. One is choosing who you work with, and 2 is being very connected to the actuals, right? So I'll explain the second part in a little bit. So the first one, I make it a point to work with people I really admire. Like, I respect the way they work. I don't have to like work myself up into convincing myself they're awesome. I just think they're freaking awesome. And then, I think you play well off of people you want to be more like. And I want to be more like all of them. They're freaking hardworking. I'm not picking up slack for anyone. It's like, you know, when you're in a group project or something like that, and like one person's picking up all the slack and then some people need to be told what to do. They're not that. Everyone's all hands on deck doing their job, like at full capacity. And then, so for me, it's choose people you really like and enjoy, and you just admire their work ethic. So that makes working with them and trusting them very easy. The second thing is be connected to the actuals. So if my mistake on here on the budget at the very beginning, let's say we're 3 days into principal photography and I've racked up 6 hours of overtime for 17 people on the crew. And let's say that cost me $12,000. Mm-hmm. Then I would look back while I'm on set. I will be looking back at the budget. Where did I not put that margin in? Like, what did we do on the schedule? And it's like, oh, okay, next time we will create a bigger margin for, maybe we know that this client gets really excited working with us and wants to add more shots. That creates more overtime. But we need to go back to the next project with them and start to build the enthusiasm in, like enthusiasm fund, you know? I mean, you gotta
preempt the fact that you know that they're going to get hyped when they got the car out there with the lights on it, and they're going to think, oh, well, yeah, and we've done all the shots we talked about, but now since we're seeing it in the flesh here, let's also do 6 more shots, and then well, I pre-budgeted for that excitement. And
yeah, so sometimes people think of overtime as a flaw in scheduling or some sort of misstep or some sort of deficit in the way we understand budgeting. But really, sometimes it's like there's so much enthusiasm to get the next shot. We're at like some beautiful sunset shot and we're like, oh my God, bring out the drone. This is super cool. Yeah. And then forget it. Let's eat it on this budget right here. Bring the drone out for another hour. We're not going to be here in this location ever again. This is amazing. Yeah. And then, so it
might always be a good idea to get something really unique and beautiful that you've got 6 people out in the desert and it's too expensive to come back. So you burn that $3,000 doing that, but you take it out of the day, and tomorrow and the next day you subtract it out of that by cutting a shot out of those days or not spending OT, and you come back down to your budget again.
Or know that you're going to eat it on this one, and then the next time you do an estimate for a project similar to this, you build in that kind of enthusiasm time, or you just build in a new, just beware of that kind of margin. So as a line producer, you're watching literally the budget line. And
is that what that means? Because I actually was going to say that earlier, is like with all the different producer titles, the line producer, I've never really understood that part of the title, line producer.
Yeah. So the line producer is like, look at pre-production. Maybe pre-production costs us 35 grand. Okay, are we keeping within budget? Where are we making the mistake, or what did we not budget in? And then so the line producer it's a really awesome role, because you'll see the budget and then you'll try to keep under budget when you're executing the concept, or you're setting up for pre-production, for executing of the concept. Then when you get into once you deliver and then you do what is called an actual, where you wrap the shoot and you tally up all of the expenses, how much it costs in pre-production, how much it costs to pay the crew, how much it costs in post-production to delivery.
And you got your big fat binder with your wrap book and all the...
Yeah, and I don't have a big fat binder. Everything is like digitized. Everything's digital. Everything's in my cloud.
I remember working at a production company once, and they, like, for whatever reason, this is a long time ago, they didn't do that digitally. So even a commercial...
Oh no!
Would have a binder with, I'm not kidding, the rings on the binder were like 6-inch diameter, and the binder had to be, and there sometimes would be like a big Ford job, and it would have gone on for like weeks, because they go shoot in the desert and they go shoot by the water, and there'd be 3 binders that are 9-10 inches thick, and then they tell me, because I was PAing, they tell me, can you make sure that the rigging electric on day 2 got his paycheck?
I'm
like, what?
So that's my job.
Yeah.
So my job is basically that. So my second job when I moved to Los Angeles area was basically to be the bookkeeper / accountant, but like bookkeeper of a television commercial production company. So they made commercials for like the Latin America market. And at the end of the year, there was 12 of those binders, 1 binder per commercial. And my job was to audit, basically, or my understanding of the job was I was auditing all the line producers' work. So I went through this backwards so I basically would get like a binder, and I would go through all of their expenses to make sure that it was correct and what their final number was correct. So now I'm doing the role of the person I used to audit. So now
cool. It's like that was like you're getting paid training to just understand how the job that you're doing now worked.
Yeah, no,
it would worry about having to go down in flames.
Dude, 2 months into like being here, I was writing like really big checks. It was really cool because I was like, whoa. So I started knowing I wasn't on production. I was at the end of production when I first got here. I was like I was auditing wrap books, and I was writing checks. So I knew how much crew was actually getting paid, like from, directors to line producers.
That's super interesting when you see, I guess from my point of view, whoa, what was that? My point of view, the demystification of the process. So when I went from wanting to be on a big show and work on a real production to actually doing it, there was this, it was like I was being ported over from low,
you're at the
budget,
end,
low everything, to like high budget, high movement, high pace.
Yeah.
And the demystification of how it all worked was very interesting to me. And I always like to use that term because when you don't know what a big production is like to work on it, and all you've got to go on is what people said and what your friend said or what an interview, it's not proof until you do it yourself, and you have to be on time, and you're looking for your paycheck and who's the accountant and all these things. And it demystifies the whole process in many different ways. But what I was going to say is when you move down here and you got that job and you see those books, I would think that did a lot of that for you.
Oh gosh, it was so cool to see. It's almost like when you're bookkeeping for production. When I was bookkeeping for production, it was like forensics, accounting, forensics. It was like forensics accounting, because sometimes I would look through the credit cards of the production company and the line producer's credit card and be like, what was this? Not that I was trying to qualify the transaction. It was like, okay, there's $4.95 on this shoot. Can you tell me what it's for so I can know how to categorize it? And they would tell me, oh, it's this presentation software that we had to buy in order to show the first cut to the client. And then so you would start to see you just get really informed by what is needed for like a deliverable to be produced. Right. I call it a deliverable, but people can call it like a movie, a commercial, whatever. But it's cool.
Whatever the project is.
Yeah. You learn so much looking at everybody's invoice. Like, okay, so this DP charges this amount, but then there's a kit rate. And like, people don't think about kit rates sometimes, Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay.
That's why when you're really good at budgeting something and you actually tell someone, because I don't know if you're bidding for projects, but when you're budgeting it, no matter who you're telling this budget to or this bid or whatever it is, you want to make sure you're covering your ass so that if you do get awarded the job, that you can actually deliver the product, the piece within that budget that you gave. Because the next production company that might be bidding on the job, let's say you said we can do it for $1,000, and they said they can do it for $900, but you don't know that. And you got to be really good at your job, because you don't know what the DP's kit rental is, and if he's union or not. You don't know what the art director needs to do their job, but you have to be able to judge that and make an assumption on budget so that you can build that and get on the job, right?
Yeah, and we've gotten better. We get better and better to create like budgets for different departments. Like let's say the next project, I realize I really want to work with this art director. I get to pick my next player for my next team, Yeah. So, and maybe I loved what this art director did for this one project, but there's another one I'm shooting for. Let's say he did a commercial I really, really enjoyed. I'm like, let's see if we can bring him on for this one. Sure. How much does he cost? And then you just kind of get a ballpark of the league people are playing in by their invoices.
Okay.
It's like, to me, a clue. Like, it's a clue. We'll have one AC that charges us $600 for 10 hours. And then we have another AC that charges us $700 for 10. Yeah. And then, but then it's like, and then his kit rate's higher. So maybe he'll end up being $900 for us. Whereas the other guy's still $600. He only charges, he's $650 with his $50 kit. So you got a $250 difference. And then you make that judgment call. Yeah. You just go, you know what? I really would rather
$250, or is this other guy going to do it fine for less?
Yeah, and you just make this kind of judgment call. Like, do we want to make a compromise on the AC? No, probably not. Like, there's so many cool.
Most of your job is done before any camera starts rolling. Is that fair to say?
No.
It sounds like majority of your work is done before production happens.
There's a ton of thinking and strategy by the time you get to production. Yeah. So I would say like 60% of the job, no, I guess you're right. Yeah. Like 70 to 80% of my job is done before production. Like probably 80% of my job is done before. So basically what you're experiencing on production, my entire job is pre-production.
Right.
And then
you're setting all these pieces in place, and they should have momentum and be able to roll. You shouldn't have to tweak at that point.
Well, if I'm good at my job, I'm anticipating what they'll need. So let's say as I'm in pre-production, I know the director wants this shot. Okay, we're getting a crane, but just in case the crane doesn't work out, let's make sure we have a scissor lift. And then, just in case the scissor lift is going to break down, make sure we have a backup generator because we're in the middle of the desert and we're 2 hours away from blah, blah. So you're doing a lot of strategy. And, that may not seem like a lot to people, but
anybody that sees this and watching it probably is watching it because it's valuable information to them. And that kind of stuff is the only stuff that when you think about those things, because if somebody that hasn't been on a set with a budget and is trying to do that with their time, you don't really realize the difficulties of shooting 200 miles away from society until you're shooting 200 miles away from society. Because it's only real once you're there. Talking about it is one thing. And that's the same way it happened to me. You know, before you actually get on a real job that's got the budget that can go get this interesting shot on this lone highway somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You know, you can only do that if you've got the money to get out there and take your equipment and people out there. And most of the time, the low budget little things are all done locally. And when you see that, you drive out there and you obviously get put in a hotel and you see how much production is spending just before the camera even rolls. Hotel,
it's a lot.
Rental cars and the van and the shuttle and food and breakfast and the dinners for the clients, all these things. And then now after all that, now we're going to start actually shooting a commercial, you know, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And like it's really, you know, it sounds like really fun and sometimes, and it definitely is. It also is a lot of work. It's like, if you think of pre-production, it's just homework. It's research. It's a lot of research. And then, it's research. To me, it's like throwing a party. Like producer is the person who throws the party. That's what I think. I mean, that's one way to think of it. It's a fun, lighthearted way to think about it. It's like, what are all the cool toys that need to be on at the party for it to be a super fun party? And then like, you know, what are the lenses? What are the cameras? Like, do we have everything? Do we need a PA? Do we, you know, just like, what are all the, like, do we need a keg? Do we need a wrap? Like, do we need
ask you that though? Do you actually yourself call like the department heads, like let's say the DP or the production designer, and you get a quote from them? Like, you're not putting their budget together. You're taking their budget and adding it to yours in total. Is that true?
What do you mean?
So you're putting a budget together as a line producer, but you're not putting the production designer's budget together, the art department, all that. Like, you might be putting production's budget together, but you don't know what the DP, the lighting, the grip, you don't know what they need. So you can't put their budget together.
I know, I do.
From them. You do.
I do. I ballpark it. So if I know I'm shooting it,
you're not contacting department heads and getting their budget from them. You're putting their budget together.
I'm asking, first we go with the director. What is the director trying to shoot? And then at the same time, a DP will say, oh, well, you should try this lens versus this lens. So we'll compare, like, let's say we have like Sigma primes versus like Zeiss primes. I'll do a quick like comparison. How much is a $2,000 difference maybe in the set?
I guess what I'm getting at is, if you're not doing that, if you're not requesting these budgets and you're doing it yourself, then it's like that. Basically, the majority of these things are done in house. You have your own equipment, and the director.
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right.
Mostly we have. I mean, we shoot on Red. I think we have the Red Epic.
But the company owns a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
Like. Okay.
Yeah. So then when we get to studio, what we're hiring is, you know, like we'll hire G&E, so Grip and Electric.
So more cut and dry, like, you know what their day rate and their equipment and all that is.
Yeah, I have a ballpark unless we're doing something special like green screen, and like asking them to like I'll ask them how much a green screen is, like in addition to what they are already going to bring out. So I kind of have a ballpark. If you wrap enough projects, so basically if you go at the very end after principal photography, after post-production, and you look at and you do a post-mortem on like what you spent and what you didn't account for, then going into your next budgeting, you kind of know, you get really good, I think, at like how much on location production is going to cost and how much a studio thing is going to cost. Like, I don't think our budget in production fluctuates that much right now because of what we're doing is so specialized, but we're adding some really, really cool gear, like really, really cool gear.
So your repetition and experience are your best tools for understanding how to accurately create a budget for the next job. So.
Yes. And then you'll get better at, like, we're working at it. And I think we are definitely improving. Like, you know, this one's going to be new for us because this current project that I'm working on, another secret project, we have a second AC, which we've never had a second AC for. We did not budget for a second AC, but because we're using this specialty gear that requires like a kind of a bigger team, and it's our first time using this specialty gear. We didn't account for a second AC. So for me, going into my next estimate where we get to use this cool gear, I will make sure to budget for a second AC.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So
let's take this like beyond then. So we talked about how you kind of like found out what this role is and became, took this opportunity. So I don't really have a lot of like vertical growth I could do in the job that I do, when I'm actually doing it. But you actually could do a lot of vertical movement in what you do. Do you have like aspirations for, what you would like to do next?
Oh, for sure.
Where you'd like to go?
For sure. Eventually, I mean, ever since day one, I've always wanted to create original content, right? Yeah. But a lot of the last 2 decades was learning curves, and then also like battle testing, if that still is the dream. And it still is the dream to make feature films. To make feature films idealistically written by us, and directed by us, or at least hire a director that like totally gets what we're trying to say or trying to have a story about. So for me, it's still in order of, it would be amazing to make like feature films that go into a theater, or streaming, but really in a theater. That would be really cool. Yeah. And then the commercials, making really cool commercials with people I really like. And then I think TV would be fun, but I don't think I would want to produce I think I would want to EP a television show, because I just feel like that's a huge learning curve. And I don't know if we would want to hire a showrunner if we get into television. It's just so, yeah. I feel like television is a completely different league. But for me, filmmaking is like actual making cinema, like a movie. That would be amazing. Like, to me, that's like the next league.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I don't know. Like, I would think the majority of people in the filmmaking industry, no matter what they're doing, even if you're doing something pretty straightforward, that's kind of like routine, you still want to work on a feature. I mean, that's the way I describe it when I have these conversations about, what would you like to do kind of thing. I want to be sitting on the porch when I'm 90, drinking lemonade and thinking I did something that's in the world that's not going to die when I die. It'll live on, and like children, it's like there's something out there that will still, you can interact with, that's entertaining. It's something people can get something from.
Yeah, I think for me, I have this really like philosophical idea and idealistic idea about movies, that like movies are really short. It's long form, but it's a very short way to expand other people's frame of reference. You're not necessarily trying to get people to believe anything, but like, let's say, you're I was born in Vietnam. Let's say there was some kid in Vietnam who sees movies all the time, but like didn't know how anybody in California lives for some reason. That's actually stupid. There's so many movies about California people. But I mean that like, if there's somebody somewhere on earth that sees a movie and like their whole life opens up, where they're like, whoa, I didn't know I could like live that way. I didn't know there are people who did those things. I want to do those things, because they don't see it where they live. That's how my world got bigger, is like seeing movies where I'm like, whoa, people get to travel places like that. I didn't know places like that existed. So for me, like, movies are really an awesome way to like know what's available out there potentially. Or, just, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I just think it's cool. Like the idea that like,
that's what's real to you about it. And that's special.
Yeah. I think
everybody has something that, even if it's not movies, everybody has something that, it's a picture of their, when they were 2 sitting on their grandma's lap, or that trophy they won for playing football in high school,
Yeah.
something that's like, that's that thing that connects them to something special that gives them that feeling of
There's
it's
more.
rewarding, you know, and it's something else
Yeah.
other than the daily.
Yeah, there's more. It's like I like when I was a little kid and watching like ET. Like you're watching ET and it's like, oh my God, there's other people out there and maybe there's other beings out there. But I mean, the idea I think about movies, I hope, is that it like encourages curiosity. Like you know,
Boom.
just kind of and
Boom.
give what?
Encourages curiosity. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, I think it's easy. I think we're in right now. We're kind of in dark times, um,
Yeah,
and
I'd say that for
we're
sure.
and like you
Completely
know,
agree.
and like if you allow it, the world can feed you a lot of bad news. And I think for me, the opportunity of making original content is creating stories that are awe-inspiring, that like maybe can create wonder. You know, because like there's just
That's what it is for me.
I'm fighting darkness with movies.
It'll
Thanks
be
for
that this
having
will be
me.
valuable to a lot of people, and I don't know who's going to see it, but it's valuable because I know for firsthand experience that I was definitely at a point at you know my teens reading magazines, and this is like you know very early internet, but I scratched around for information,
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and podcasts, in my opinion, are a great way to get sort of an unfiltered taste of somebody's career or what they're inspired to do or what they do, and have it be have it uncompressed, like on a different, you know, if there's sponsors or it's like a TV show, you might just get this slice that really doesn't dive into anything. But this, I think, is a great format and a great place to
Yeah.
let go from
I
the
do.
constraints and just go into that conversation and just let it happen, you know. So it'll I think there's going to be, I guarantee somebody will see this and be inspired by you to do something, what no matter what it is, because you did what you want to do. That's kind of a natural
That would
thing to
be
have happen.
amazing. If they do that, reach out to me and let me know what you did. But like, I really think I know people say it's really competitive. I'm not having the experience that it's competitive. I'm having the experience that if you put a lot of effort into the thing you want and you are true to what you want, you will get it. I think you will get it. And like, it's a biased point of view, I think probably, but like, I really think like you the world rewards effort is my view of it.
Low-end Thach, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for being on, and thanks everybody for watching. I'll keep doing this, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it. If you're watching, and stay tuned for another one. Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.